I love the title of this day, Yeah Nah. We actually have a Slack channel at Culture Amp, which is for Australianisms, for the people that work in our other offices to understand some of the things we say and what they mean. It was surprising to me the first time I talked about a fortnight, and people in the US had no idea what we were talking about. This term doesn't make any sense. So this concept of Yeah Nah is quite an interesting one, and one that I want to talk through under the lens of building a culture-first company. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the yeahs and the nahs that I would give back to myself on the journey, and hopefully some of these will be useful for you too. For anyone that doesn't know my story, before I founded Culture Amp, I was in visual effects. So I ran a company called Rising Sun Pictures. We worked on Hollywood films, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Batman, etc. And I've now come to realize that no matter what I do with Culture Amp, it's much more impressive that I worked on Harry Potter. That said, I did get to the point where I decided that working for Hollywood wasn't all that there could be or should be, and that I wanted to start a software company. And I wanted to focus on a bigger problem. I wanted to make a bigger dent in the universe. And that dent that I wanted to make was really to help other companies be culture first. I wanted to work out, how do I help companies use feedback to make their company a better place to work? And at Culture Amp, we've basically built a platform to make it easy to collect, understand, and act on employee feedback. And the big issue, as anybody who's tried to solve this problem knows, it's that last part. How do you actually get people to act? How do you get people to use the data they're collecting? I'm very proud to say that, as an Australian startup, we now have over 1,000 companies worldwide. We have roughly 150 people, 80 people here in Melbourne, 40 people in San Francisco, almost a dozen people in New York, and 10 people in London. And we stand here looking forward at 2020, and we've given ourselves the vision that by 2020 we want to be a $100 million a year revenue business, but more important, we want to be a company that other people admire and a company that other people want to learn from. And that's actually the big part for me in terms of thinking about the legacy. $100 million is a lovely number. It's a sort of number that people in the Valley care about. It's a number that says you've become a certain size company. But for me, it's about saying we were able to do things a certain way at scale. It's not just that we built a nice little company inside, it's that we did something at a scale that was meaningful, and it was something that could impact and change the way other people act. So, I often use a sporting analogy. For anybody that follows the basketball, Houston Rockets started shooting more threes than anyone else and didn't make that much difference. Nobody really noticed because they didn't win. The Golden State Warriors won a championship shooting more threes than everybody else, and they changed the way the game was played. And that's actually the legacy that I want to leave. Not only do I want to build a successful company, I do, but I want to build a successful company a certain way. I want to build a company that believes in certain things and something that other people can look at and use. So, what can I share with you today? What yeahs and what nahs can I share from my journey that may be something that is interesting and relevant to you? The first one goes back to that 100 million. For anyone that's heard me tell my story, I talk about the fact that before I even knew what the product was, before I even really knew what the company was going to be, I wrote down 10,000 by 10,000 equals 100 million. And this was my vision from day one. I wanted to go build a company that had tens of thousands of customers, spending tens of thousands of dollars a year, and that would generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The numbers themselves don't matter, but the thing that I keep coming back to, and the thing that I realize more and more as I go along, is there's so much power in simple stories. There's so much power in symbols that people can actually wrap their arms around. And I'm reminded of a CEO I heard talk once, and he was saying how he wanted to give people, they had a big thing that they were going to shoot for, and if they got it, everyone was going to get a $1,000 check. Everyone in the company gets $1,000 if we hit this goal. And they hit the goal, and he was walking down the corridor, and he walked past the finance team, and he saw them madly writing out all these checks, $983.52, $956.47. He's like, what's going on? What are you doing? And they're like, oh, well, we're writing the checks for everybody. He's like, but why aren't they $1,000? And I was like, well, everybody's at different tax brackets, and we've got to take the money out, and we've got to do all this sort of stuff. He's like, no, everyone needs to get a $1,000 check. That's the symbol. You've really got to think about the fact that these things are meaningful when people can remember them and repeat them and hold on to them. So whatever your story is, whatever your journey is, think about that early on. Turn it into something that people will remember. Peter Haas, who works at Culture Amp, said to me once, if you want people to remember, give them 3 things. If you want people to forget, give them 4. If you just want them to remember that there was lots, give them 5. Really think about the simplicity. And keep saying it. More than anything else, probably the one piece of advice that I could give to any founder is whatever your mission is, whatever your story is, whatever your vision is, you need to keep saying it until you are physically sick of it. At that point, people will hear it for the first time. I can't stress enough just how important it is to work out what that message is and to repeat that message over and over and over again. That's actually one of your number one jobs in the company, which is to take those stories and to retell them so that people hear them as if for the first time. One of the things I'm really proud of, and one of the things I'd love to go back to an earlier version of myself and remind myself, is invest in the community. You know, I was talking to a Valley VC, and he actually said to me, it isn't always the best product company that wins, sometimes it's the best community that wins. And this was something that we did almost on a hunch, on an intuition, and also because we were cheapskates. We didn't want to pay lots of money for marketing. We didn't want to be platinum sponsors at all of these things. We wanted to go do it ourselves. We wanted to do guerrilla marketing. And so we started saying, let's do it on the side. Let's not pay $20,000 to be a platinum sponsor. Let's run our own event on the side. And early on, we came up with this concept of the people geek, which for us is somebody that cares about culture but actually wants to be an active participant. And it actually came from a t-shirt. So early on, we were invited to speak at a presentation. Thought, okay, we're going to be up on stage. You need a t-shirt. Let's come up with a slogan. And we threw around some ideas, and we came up with this idea of people geek. And we didn't really like it at the time, to be honest. We thought, it's the best of a bad bunch. But we went with it. And so we started using it. And then one day we went to see a client of ours, Pinterest, and we turned up, and the guy there had a People Geek t-shirt on. We're like, what? Where'd you get the t-shirt? He said, I made them. At the point when your customers are making t-shirts with your slogan on it, don't change it. So that's when we knew that that was our community, and so we continued to invest in it. And it's now something where we have over 40,000 people a week reading our People Geekly. We run over 120 events a year. We have all of these people coming together, and the important thing is those people are not all our customers. They're just people that believe in the thing that we believe in. In Seth Godin's words, they're our tribe. So the thing that's worked better than anything else that we've ever done is to build a community, and I would remind myself of that constantly. One thing that has also worked really well, but I would kind of counsel myself on, is opening multiple offices. So we have an office in Melbourne, San Francisco, New York, and London. And I'm incredibly proud of those offices, and they're an incredible part of our success. Oh my God, it hurts. You know, when you talk about culture, when you talk about trying to build a business, landing a message is really, really important. When you go multiple time zones, you've just ratcheted up the complexity on that to warp factor 9. It is so hard to work across multiple offices. We are really, really, really focused on building a culture-first company. We use our own tool. We're always talking about where we're at. And oftentimes when I look at the challenges that we have, they stem from that exact issue that we have a team on the other side of the world and we only have half-hour crossover. Like I pretty much know to the day when we get the nice switch and we gain 2 hours back because summertime goes against each other because then things will work again. And I look around and I think about the cost of building these offices. So I was up at Canva's office in Sydney a few weeks ago, and if you ever go there, it is stunning. There's this amazing office upstairs. They've got this beautiful bar downstairs. We had dinner with their private chef, and I was like, wow, this is pretty luxurious. Like, you know, this is, I don't know if I could ever spend this much money on an office. And then I stopped and thought about the fact that we've just signed a $500,000 lease, $500,000 a year lease in San Francisco for an office that's half the size of the office we have here in Melbourne and costs us half as much. If I wasn't putting all that money into New York, into San Francisco, into London, I would easily be able to afford all of that. And so there is a challenge that on one hand, it's incredibly stimulating and inspiring to be connected to the rest of the world, and in the scheme of things, I wouldn't change it. I would go back and I would counsel myself that it is going to hurt. However much you think it's going to hurt more. It's the old line from Coldplay song, nobody said it would be easy, but nobody said it would be this damn hard. Another big thing, if any of you have seen me talk about this, it's something I talk about a little bit more now, this idea of diversity. And as you can tell in the picture there, when we started the company, we started with 4 white, IT, male, 30-something brunettes. Zero diversity in every possible way. And it wasn't something we really thought about early on. Like for the first couple of years, we were just focused on, did we even have the right to exist, let alone were we going to be the right sort of company, should we deal with these things? As we got bigger, as we brought people in, it was something we started talking about. And one of the things for me was actually, one of the things I'd like to say to myself is own that earlier. So it was actually last year at our conference, Culture by Design, when I got up on stage and talked about this for the first time. And I talked about the concept of diversity debt. And I was a little concerned in doing it because one part, who am I to get up here and talk about this? But also, what would it mean? What would it open? How would that affect us? And the thing I can say, and the thing I would say to a younger version of myself, is nothing but good comes from it. There is so much power in just opening it up and accepting that you don't have all the answers, and that you do care about it, and that it is a problem. And that as a company, the thing that you should focus on, if you want to be truly culture first, is that as you grow, diversity should grow too. But for that to actually happen, you have to focus on inclusion. So I love this quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that, for me, is the heart of what it means to actually focus on inclusion. How do you create a place that gives people the sense that they belong? How do you create a space that people want to be part of? When you're only 4 people or 10 people or even 20 people, you can only be so diverse. There's only so many people in the room. You can only meet so many different expectations. But you can be inclusive from day one. And that is something you should strive for. You should really think about, challenge yourself, what can it mean to be truly inclusive? And I want to share a story. So Culture by Design, when I got up and spoke about diversity and inclusion last year, it was a big theme of the day. And we had Juliet Beck talking about it as well, and she was fantastic. At the end of the day, I think it was actually the day after, I got an email from a woman who was at this conference. And she said to me, I came along, it was great to be part of it, and I enjoyed the morning sessions. And then it was actually Juliet's talk, and Juliet asked people to turn and talk to the person next to them. And she was engaging them in an exercise to help people think about inclusivity. This woman said she was sitting at the back, she was sitting in the back row, there was no one sitting next to her. And she said she was an African-American woman. She looked around, there was nobody else in the room like her. And so when Juliet asked people to turn to the person next to them and start talking, she said she just felt this moment of like, there's nobody to talk to. And she actually got up and she left. And as she left, she walked out the back of the place. And there's 20 of us, Culture Round people at the back. And they probably wouldn't have even seen her because there's lots of stuff going on. She walked straight past them and nobody intercepted her, and she left. And she said, I know it wasn't your intention, and I know that everybody in the room had the right desire, but at that moment I'd never felt so alone. The thing that struck home on me was 2 things. First of all, that's what inclusion is actually about. Like the challenge for us now, this is what we talk about when we run events, when we do something here. How do I reach out to you? How do I invite you to be part of it? But also the power of storytelling. I can tell that story, and that will change people's behavior. That will change people's behavior more than any amount of skills training ever can, because you actually can feel that person, and you know what it's like to be there, and you don't want to see anybody else have that too. And just to sort of belabor the point, anything worth doing is worth doing badly until you get it right. So part of the way I think about this is to embrace this concept of you've got to start with being, you are unconsciously incompetent, particularly as somebody who starts with no diversity in the company at all. We are unconsciously incompetent. Our job is to get to being consciously incompetent. We are going to suck at this for a little while. We have to push through that. We need help. We need to talk to people, and we need to be okay with that. We need to strive to be consciously competent. And ultimately, where we want to get to is to the point where this ceases being a problem. Unfortunately, that's probably a long way away, but this idea of constantly trying to be better is really, really important. Finally, my wife introduced me to this concept of compound privilege. And it's a thing that I remind myself of constantly. I'm up here as a white IT 30-something, well, I'm not 30-something anymore, male, brunette, IT, all this stuff. I'm a CEO. I am the beneficiary of a lifetime of compound privilege. And so to realize that hopefully I'm talented, hopefully I'm here because I'm good, but I'm partly here because I'm that. And I should never forget that. And I should do everything in my power to try and unwind that just a tiny bit each way along. And a journalist I was talking to once said something to me where she said, the hallmark of privilege is that you don't even know you have it. So the first thing you can do, and the first thing that I want to do, and the thing I would tell myself to do earlier, is to recognize that I have it, and to be aware of it, and to strive to reduce its effect. That all said, you can be thrust into that for all sorts of reasons. As a CEO, as a founder, it is lonely. It is hard. You know, you look around and you don't necessarily see that many people who are sharing your experiences. It's something that you struggle with existentially. And I know when I do the fundraising process, the thing I would go back and tell myself is that it is a really weird state of mind to raise money. You're almost Schrodinger's cat. You don't know if you're dead or alive. And you find yourself snapping at people and losing your cool, and you don't know why you feel like this. This is an interesting part of the founder's dilemma. You're there to do stuff that nobody else can do, and you do have to do some of that on your own. And to embrace that and to accept that that's part of what it means to be a founder. To look around and go, I'm the only person sitting on this bench. And I've been that person many a time, sitting there just trying to understand, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is it all worth it? And there are things that only you can do. So I got a Slack message this morning saying, from one of the people in the company saying, we have a thing where we do a founder interview. So every person that gets hired has an interview with one of the founders. And we started doing this, it was about employee 20, when we hired somebody, and I turned to Doug, my co-founder, and said, oh, did you meet this person? He said, oh, no. I said, Rod, meet this person? No. Now, we trust the people in the company, but we've now brought someone in and none of the founders know who this person is. At the end of the day, we have to be accountable for those people. Regardless, we have to trust other people to find good people, but we need to know who they are when they come in. We need to be accountable for them. And I remind myself with the Simon Sinek quote, you are not responsible for the results. You are early on, but once you get to 10 or 15 people, you're not responsible for the results. You're responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. And so just reminding myself that over and over again, your job as a founder is to think about the people and to be accountable for every single one of them. Yes, you need to write down the values. So these are our values. Have the courage to be vulnerable, trust people to make decisions, learn faster through feedback. And those three values actually came from the founders sitting down and just saying, what do we believe? What do we care about? What are we willing to fight for? What are the things that matter? And I was reading last night when I was preparing for this, a Confluence page that we wrote where we actually just did that. The founders just sat down and said, what do you think? What do you care about? And we put that together and we came up with these. And they don't have to be perfect. It's more important how they're used than how they're written. They're values that you give to people to tell them what's unique about your company, what matters at your company, what's important to your company. But one of the most wonderful things is you don't have to create them all. So we went through this process where we actually explored our values together. So we got everyone in the company together for a series of values and action workshops. And we wanted to explore the three things that I think are fundamentally important about a value. The meaning, the relevance, so why does this value matter in this company? But most importantly, the thing that I think a lot of people forget when they think about values, the mutuality. What does it mean for this value in both directions? What does this value tell you you can expect from the company? But also, what does this tell you that the company expects from you? And so we went through each of those three values that had come from the founders. What do these mean? Are they relevant? What's the mutuality? How do we embrace them? Or how do we use them? And in the process, we came to a conclusion as a group, and we opened up this as an opportunity early on, so we did one each quarter, that there was actually an unsaid value, a value that had not been described. And I don't believe that values are created, I believe that values are found, they're discovered. They're already there, you've just got to take stuff away. And so what we realized was that we were largely focusing on the individual with our first three values. And there was something that was very important that was already there but hadn't been named, which is how we helped each other. It was a level of selflessness and a way that we wanted to work. And one of the ways I think about values is that values are the behaviors and skills that you care about above all else. And so we actually had a fourth session where we said, what would that value be? If we were to name a fourth value, what would that value be? And after a process, this is what came back. Amplify others. Be a place where your worth is measured by your ability to amplify the people around you, to have that selflessness, to have that desire. And the final thing I would say to myself at any point in the journey, and the thing I would say to everybody here, whether the company succeeds or the company doesn't succeed, it is worth it. It is hard, but it is worth it. And the moment where this hits home for me is I'll be in another of the offices. I was actually in our San Francisco office a few months ago, and we went out to a dinner, and I got up, and the night before, I'd come back to the office late, so it was like 11 o'clock, and I was in the office, and nobody else was there, thankfully. And it's dark, and I'm looking out across San Francisco, and I looked around the room. There was just all these empty tables, empty chairs, and people's stuff. And I just felt so humbled that I was able to be part of creating this space that all of these people had come to. All of these people had been able to bring their hopes and dreams and fears and aspirations, and they'd taken them to this company. And they were going on this journey with me. And it's those few moments when you look around, you're charging so hard, but you look around, you look at all this and go, I'm part of this. I'm part of bringing this to life. I'm part of creating a place where people want to be. That's the best gift. More than any money, more than any customers, more than any success, is being able to look around and realize that you've created a place that people want to be a part of, and that you are part of their dreams, their hopes, and their aspirations. Thank you.